The Colorado Buffaloes are looking to pull off an upset against Nebraska in week 2. I think they could do it, but a couple things are going to have to change.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Let's dive right into Colorado's week 2 game against Nebraska. It's feeling very different than last year. I think last year there's a lot of unknown, right? Before the season, Nebraska was double-digit favorites, and it was like there's no way they lose to Colorado. And then Colorado wins against TCU, and Nebraska doesn't look that great in their first week, right? And everyone changes their tone a little bit. And it's like, oh, maybe Colorado is good, right? Or maybe Colorado can beat them. I think this year, with the additions that Nebraska made with Dylan Rhule, Isaiah Neyor he technically went to Texas, but he had one catch there. I knew him from dominating at Wyoming. Really strong receiver who at Texas, he was at one point, he was supposed to be the Adonai Mitchell for Xavier Worthy, like the role that Adonai Mitchell had last year, except he tore his ACL in the spring game and then kind of got buried on the depth chart in the ensuing year. So, yeah, this game's a little different. Nebraska, they have a passing attack, which was what they didn't have last year. Jeff Sims, for how good of an athlete he was unable to put everything together. And I think that's kind of been his issue everywhere he's been, and is probably why he's not starting at Arizona State right now. So, according to ESPN, Nebraska is a 7.5-point favorite. They expect this game to be a high-scoring game. 57.5 points is the over-under mark. And then their matchup predictor has Nebraska with a 60.4% chance of winning. I personally think Colorado can win this game, but there's a few things that have to go their way. One, defensively, they need to make adjustments quick, and they cannot let Nebraska get on them early. And let me explain. Last week, when Colorado played against North Dakota State, Cam Miller absolutely torched them in one particular part of the field. If you look between the numbers, he completed I'm doing math right now. 14 of his 14 passes between the numbers. And that is not great. Realistically, and they were all, outside of he had one deep pass that went 49 yards, but he was just constantly looking over the middle and finding the open receiver. And a lot of this has to do, as Dalton Wasserman from PFF explained to us a couple days ago, a lot of this had to do with Colorado's defense, right? They were playing a lot more man than most college defenses do. And I don't want to say it didn't work, right? But Cam Miller was having just a fine time finding the open receiver. And so Dylan Rhule, who let me go over to his stats against UTEP, which granted Colorado's going to be a much better challenge than UTEP. He did almost all of his damage between the numbers. He was 5 of 6 on passes 10 yards or more over the middle, 4 or 5 on passes 0 yards or over, 0 to 10, and then 5 of 5 on passes at or around the line of scrimmage. So, and he had 2 passes far outside right, 80 yards, touchdowns. That's where he got his big plays. But when they needed to move the ball down the field, he was going over the middle. So if you're Colorado, you have to figure out a way to combat this, whether it's switching up the defense a little bit, right? Or maybe switching up the linebackers. I know Trevor Woods was someone who I was hopeful for because he has that experience as a safety in coverage, and Nebraska just kind of picked on him last game, right? And so you have a guy like Nakai Hill-Green, who I think should be starting. It's one of those things where it's week 1, so you don't want to base everything off of week 1 and be like, oh my gosh, what is Colorado doing? But I thought he would be the starter, and maybe they could use him in coverage more. Maybe they couldn't. I don't know. We're going to have to kind of wait and see. I feel like we're still figuring out the right combinations. And I think that's the hard part for Colorado is when you bring in so many new players, there's so many things to figure out. And I think they're figuring that out as they go. So they need to figure out a way to take away they need to force Dylan Raiola to make hard throws, like uncomfortable throws. Which brings me to my next point. You can't just get pressures on him, right? You can't just pressure Dylan Raiola and it's like, okay, we got pressure on him. We did it, right? Like that's not going to work. He is someone who I never wanted to compare him to Patrick Mahomes because I think comparing anyone to arguably the best quarterback we've ever seen at the NFL level. I mean, granted, Tom Brady's there, but I think Patrick Mahomes is probably the most gifted quarterback we've ever seen. You don't just chase Patrick Mahomes around and be like, okay, we got him out of the pocket. That's a win. Like that doesn't work like that because he will launch the ball down the field. He will hit you with a little shortstop, double play, turn, sidearm throw. And Dylan Raiola is the same exact way. There's a reason that Mahomes calls him his little cuzzo or whatever he calls him. And yeah, that's just, you have to get to him. Colorado had 10 hurries last week, 3 sacks, and 1 quarterback hit on a play that wasn't a sack. And so realistically, you need to get more hurries than that. You have to. I don't know if it's Deion Hayes. I don't know if it's BJ Green, Samuel O. Chidozie Nwankwo had a couple big plays, right? I don't care who it is. I don't. It doesn't matter who it is. It just matters that they do it. Because if Dylan Raiola has time, or if you chase him out of the pocket and he's still able to make throws down the field, it's going to be a long game. You're putting a lot of pressure on your offense. And realistically, it feels like a similar situation to Colorado's offense last year, where it's like, okay, our defense our defense is getting torched. We got to match them touchdown for touchdown. And I think Colorado's offense is talented enough to do that with the best of them. But we saw at times last week, right? Shedeur Sanders gets stuffed, or Shedeur Sanders, 4th and 1, they hand the ball off, gets stuffed, handoff. There is another one where fluky interception, right? Where Shedeur Sanders throws the ball, bounces off a defender's foot, goes to another guy, and that cost him points. There was just so many moments where it's like, okay, Colorado's not scoring on this drive. And they ended up winning, so it's fine. But in games where the other offense, because I think Nebraska's offense is probably definitely more high octane than North Dakota State's, if the other offense can match you blow for blow, it puts a lot more pressure on your offense. So the best way to combat that is to get pressure on Dylan Raiola. And I just don't think they did that enough. Realistically, I don't feel like they did that enough for Cam Miller. And when they did, he just kind of scrambled. I think they need to bring more pressure. I'm looking up at how Nebraska did last week. They gave up 5 hurries overall on the game. They didn't give up a single sack to UTEP, and so solid start. I think a little bit of the efforts go to Dylan Raiola there, but yeah, their pass blocking grades. Let me just go through them. Justin Evans Jenkins, 85.9. Micah Mazkul, wow, what a name. Micah Maz is I'm going to call him, 85.9 as well. Ben Scott, 83.1. That was their center, Ben Scott. Ramir Johnson, their starting running back, he had an 81.6. So he was obviously getting down and dirty. And so the 2 people with the lowest grades were the tackles, and that's Turner Cochran and Bryce Benhart. So if you're Colorado, you have these guys. And I just saw a well-off media video recently. It was an older video, but it was Deion Sanders yelling at the defense lineman, like, you guys are dogs when it comes to one-on-one. You guys are always talking, right? But when we get to 5-on-5, we get to the full sets, right? You guys don't do anything. So do something. And so BJ Green, Samuel Kunalola, Deion Hayes, whoever's out there, right? Whoever is on the edge, this is their chance, right? This is how you get pressure on Nebraska. This is how you sort of make Dylan Raiola uncomfortable. And I think Colorado's also going to have to bring a little bit more blitzes than they did against North Dakota State. I think we're going to have to mix things up and really see if you could trick Dylan Raiola into throwing something that he's not comfortable with. Offensively, this is Colorado can win if. Offensively, they are nearly flawless. Very high standard. I'm not going to pretend like it's not. I'm not going to pretend like it's borderline unfair to say, hey, you have to be near perfect to win this game. But that's kind of where we're at. We have not seen enough. Granted, it's been one game from this defense over the past 2 years, right? Different defense last year, but you kind of have to group them together at this point in the sense of the offense seemed to sort of be the heartbeat of this team. So if the offense does well and masks what the defense is doing through the first week, which again, tough comparison, the defense was the weak link. Excuse me. So if Colorado is unable to stop them on defense, they need the offense to be matching them. They need the offense to set the tone. They need big plays. They need touchdowns. They need points. Because if this game is back and forth, or if Nebraska's offense is really as good as a lot of people think it is, me included, I think Dylan Rhule is going to end up being one of the best quarterbacks in college football in the next couple of years. This is not going to go well for Colorado's defense. They are going to be tested, and if they cannot hold up, then they are probably going to force the offense to really have to press, like force the issue. So I think that's the third thing, where it's like, if Colorado wins, or Colorado can win, if their offense plays near flawless, that means every drive, or almost every drive, needs to end in points. If it doesn't end in points, it needs to end in Nebraska getting pinned down the field, which is more of a punter thing, Mark Bissett. So they need points, or they need very, very favorable field position. Excuse me, felt like a little tongue twister there. Favorable field position for the defense. And I think that's going to be something that I look out for the most. And then lastly, Colorado can win if they get anything from the run game, right? Nebraska, very strong secondary. They, I think, will sort of be one of the better secondaries that Colorado faces, I would say. It's hard to gauge how good they were against UTEP again, because it's UTEP. I'm not trying to, this isn't a UTEP slander podcast, I promise you, but UTEP is probably going to be one of the lower ranked teams in the country. And they had 149 yards passing on 5.7 yards. Nebraska had 2 picks on 2 different quarterbacks. Or they had 2 picks total, picked off a different quarterback. Yeah, I just feel like the secondary is going to really be testing. Now, I like Colorado's receivers over pretty much everyone in the country, but you know what really helps open up an offense? If the defense has to worry about the run. And so far throughout the Deion Sanders tenure, I don't think a single defense has been worried about Colorado's run game. It is what it is. It just hasn't been effective. Charlie Offerdahl is going to list it as a starter. Don't know if he will actually get starters reps. Dallin Hayden, this is you right here. This is your game. You come from the Big Ten. You have a Big Ten background. You started your career at Ohio State, highly touted recruit, right? You had big moments against Purdue. You had big moments in the Big Ten. This is your chance. This is your chance to make a name for yourself, to open up this Colorado offense and sort of quiet down the notions that, hey, these running backs are bad. Now, here's where it gets difficult for Colorado and running the ball. They are so lacking confidence, or they lack so much confidence in their tight end group, that they don't use them. So there's not going to be a lot of help from the tight ends here. I'm looking at how many snaps that the tight ends blocked for Colorado last game. Sam Hart, 1. And then Savell Smalls, 6. So 7 plays of that game, Colorado used a tight end. So if you're a running back, you're not going to have extra help. You're going to have to get through. You need the line to step up, which I think is probably part of this. You need the line to step up and give you a push, and then you got to make some plays. At the end of the day, this is a lot to ask of a running back, right? Where Colorado's running backs last week had one of the worst yards before contact in college football, which means they were getting touched before they reached the line of scrimmage or whatever. I think it was 1.5 or 4 yards 1.4 yards before contact. That's not going to get it done. The offensive line needs to be better. But if you're a running back, if you're a Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator, figure out a way to get in space, figure out a way to make plays. I think this sort of stems from Pat Shurmur need to figure out a way to get creative. And I think the running backs need to make plays. Someone needs to step up and prove that, hey, we could be a part of this offense. Easier said than done. I know it's not all on the running backs. Like, I get that. But they need something. And so those are the 4 ways that Colorado can win. I need the defense to figure out a way to make Dylan Rhule uncomfortable and force him to make throws that, like, he can't play between the numbers all game. Otherwise, he will shred them. You got to get pressure on him. Their 2 tackles were their worst graded players in their week 1 win. You have guys that you brought in that are certified pass rushers. BJ Green was an all Pac-12 pass rusher this past year at Arizona State. You need someone to step up, get to the quarterback, not only put pressure on him, but get to the quarterback. There's a difference there, right? Big difference. You need the offense to be nearly flawless. You need the offense to be scoring almost every time they touch the ball, if not every time they touch the ball. And that's a lot to ask for. But if this is going to be a shootout kind of game, that's what you need. And then lastly, you need the running backs to really step up. The run game in general. We'll call it the run game in general. Because if the running back or the running back, if the run game is useless again, and you are forcing Shedeur Sanders and this passing attack to carry you to victory every week, teams are going to figure out, hey, if we just drop almost everyone, they still can't run the ball. So you have to be more balanced. Again, easier said than done, but those are the 4 ways that I think Colorado can win this game on Saturday. When we come back, I'm going to be naming position groups and or players that need to step up. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you could cancel anytime. And if that's not enough, FanDuel also has something special for our listeners this weekend. Be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all Sunday, September 8th, pre-game moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be live starting Friday, September 6th, 9/6. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. Just visit FanDuel.com now, or just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook right now. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow. Also, make sure to tune in after the game. We will have a postcast wherever you listen to your podcast. And then I will also have a live recap right after the game as well. And yeah, depending on how this game goes, it'll be a fun one or maybe not so fun one for Colorado fans. We'll have to wait and see. But in order for it to be a fun one, there's going to be a few people that need to step up, right? And few people, positions. I'm going to start off with one that I think he played well, like for the most part. I think he had bright moments. I think for the most part, he has always been a staple of this defense. See if you could guess with me as I pull up what I need to pull up. I think he has always been a staple of this defense. I think there's a lot of confidence in him to make big plays. He's a big hitter. Hint, hint. He's someone that the coaches are very confident in. But last week he was reckless, and he could have cost Colorado the game on a couple plays. Luckily, outside of the late hit near the red zone, nothing was called. But Shiloh Sanders, he needs to step up in a sense of not putting himself in position to cost his team the game, to take himself out of the game. Colorado needs him. He was their highest graded defensive back this past game. He had a 71, or this is compared to everyone, and a 71.8 overall defensive grade. He had the best tackling grade on the team with an 86.2, and then coverage wise, the best coverage grade on the team. So he is someone that Colorado needs a lot from. They need him to be on the field making plays. Him pushing people into the sidelines, into the brick wall or the bench or whatever, can't fly, won't fly. I imagine that the refs looked at that. I imagine that they're going to look out for this, especially it's a rivalry game. They don't want it to get out of hand. So Shiloh Sanders is throwing guys out of bounds when the play is well over. They're going to flag him for unsportsmanlike conduct. And guess what? You don't get unlimited unsportsmanlike conducts. You just don't. You will get tossed from the game. And so he needs to step up in the sense of if the play's done, the play's done. There's no need to throw a guy into a Gatorade cooler. They need him on the field. They need him making tackles. They need him in coverage. They need him making big plays. He is the headache of the CEO gang. That is his proclaimed nickname, right? Well, guess what? If you're on the bench, the only person you're giving headaches is the head coach, because now you have two inexperienced safeties back there. I know Cameron Silman Craig might be able to go, but you have Savion Riley, and then you got to look to someone else. And so if he's really the CEO of the headache gang, you can't be giving people headaches on the field or from the sidelines, right? Unless it's the coach, because you're not playing and they have to start two young guys who aren't really experienced. So Shiloh Sanders, got to step it up. Pass rushers, I don't care who. I mentioned it earlier, and I mean, I'm looking. I'll pull up the depth chart right now. These are just the guys who are, per the coaches or per the program, are going to be the first on the field or whatever. And Obviously, there could be openers. There could be guys that they just have here for a pomp and circumstance. Who knows? But I'm looking at Samuel Kunalola. He's a starter. BJ Green right behind him. You have Deion Hayes, Arden Walker, Taj McCoy, Quincy Wiggins if he gets in right. I don't care which one of you guys gets to the quarterback. I don't care which one of you guys forces Dylan Raiola to sort of be uncomfortable, to make a risky throw, to maybe be like, hey, I got to throw this ball away, or hey, I got to toss this one up. It doesn't matter. Preferably the whole unit. But if you don't get pressure on him, then it's really no different than last year. And Colorado last year, at the beginning of the year, they were very turnover dependent. And so they had a lot of turnovers early in the season that really helped them. And you don't want to be a boomer bust defense like that. The run defense was much improved in week 1, but the pass rush left me wanting more. So give us more, right? If you're going to win this game, you have to get to the quarterback. You have to make him uncomfortable. And I don't know if they can do that, but they need to step up and show that they can do that. Thirdly, whatever the word is, play calling, whether it's Shador checking, Pat Shurmur, do not get timid. Do not be dumb. I think there was that 4th and 1 play. I liked the aggressiveness. I really thought had they gotten that, it would have changed the momentum of the game early. Instead, we're running the ball out of the shotgun for 1 yard. So we're running 5 yards to get 1 yard. Or I guess 6 yards, right? I guess you're running 6 yards for a yard. If there's a situation where it's short yardage, give Draylon Miller the ball like he's Deebo Samuel, a little handoff, little motion jet sweep or whatever. Or you got Walter Taylor, you got Destin Wade. Let me bring up these measurables for these guys because they're big. So, or Dominique Ponder, excuse me, but he's a little on the lighter side. He's the lightest quarterback on the roster. 6'5", 185 is Dominique Ponder. So he's pretty tall. I don't know if he could sustain a lot of hits, but Destin Wade, 6'3", 225. I've been told a lot. His career, we'll probably see him move to tight end. Guess what? That means he's probably not afraid of contact. Get him back there, get him under center, take a snap, powered in. Walter Taylor, 6'5", 235. The dude is massive. Short yardage situation, get Walter Taylor in. I don't care how you do it. Michael Welch, powerful running back. Get him in the Wildcat. I don't care. But the play calling needs to be smarter, needs to be aggressive when appropriate. And I think that falls under Pat Shurmur. I think that falls under Deion Sanders for being like, hey, or like whoever's talking to Shador. I imagine it's Pat Shurmur when he's calling the plays. But even as the head coach, be like, hey, this is a scenario, right? We're up 7 with a minute left, or hey, we're down 10 with 1 timeout left. We don't have time to run the ball. We are rapid fire, try to get the ball out of bounds, stop the clock, right? Whatever the situation is, Colorado needs to be better at it. Their game management has not been up to snuff, realistically, over the past 2 years. And then lastly, the running backs. I mean, just step up. So the run game in general, step up. And then the secondary, you guys are going to have to step up as well because Dylan Raiola is going to push that ball down the field. And he is someone that can really – this is a statement game for Dylan Raiola. This is an opportunity to have him or make a statement game or make a statement, excuse me. If you are unable to make him unconfident or make him nervous, guess what? We're just going to be witnessing the immersion of the next Trevor Lawrence, the next Baker Mayfield, or whatever young quarterback you want to think of, Johnny Manziel. These are all guys different types of skill sets, but young quarterbacks who became stars earlier in the career. This could be that game for Dylan Raiola. Everyone's going to be watching. There's probably going to be close to 9 million viewers if I had to guess. This is a statement game for him. Don't let him make that statement. Otherwise, it will not go well. So those are the people who I think need to step up. You guys comment below. Who do you think needs to step up for Colorado, right? Who could be a player, position, coach, whatever it may be. We'll talk about that when we come back. Or excuse me, we'll talk about that in the comment sections. When we come back, I'm going to give you my prediction. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn's constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And so, it's a big one, right? This game, I think, does more for Colorado than it does for Nebraska in a way. I think Nebraska probably wants to win it because Colorado's won the last couple. But I think if Colorado loses this game, right, I think it takes the wind out of their sails a lot more than it does for Nebraska. And you could disagree with me all you want, but Colorado is going to be under more of a microscope, whereas Nebraska, not that we want to have these built-in excuses, but Nebraska has a freshman quarterback, and so if they lose, it's like, hey, he tried, he's a freshman or whatever. For Colorado, there's no room for error, and so I think this is going to be a really close game. I think Colorado covers and wins. I've been saying 35-28 in favor of Colorado. I think the offense, if it comes down to a shootout, and a lot of people get on me for saying this, if it comes down to quarterbacks, at this moment, I trust Shedeur Sanders more. This is assuming that the game is in shootout range. Like if the final possession, if there's 5 minutes left and both teams get the ball and say it's 21-21, Nebraska goes down the field, scores 28-21 or 28-28, whatever, and Nebraska has the ball, I trust Shedeur Sanders more to go down the field and score than I trust Dylan Rhule. Now, granted, I've only seen Dylan Rhule play one college game. I don't know much about the guy from one college game against one of the worst teams in the country, but I do know based off his high school rating, based off how I watched him play in high school, whether it be at his high school or during the Polynesian Bowl. There's a lot to like about him, and so he's a confident young gunslinger. I trust Shedeur Sanders more, and so that's where I'm siding with Colorado. I think they win 38-20, or excuse me, 35-28. I keep mixing up my own score prediction. Yeah, I think it'll be a close one. I think realistically, if Colorado wins this game, right, I don't think they'll be ranked. I don't think they should be ranked. But I think people will have a little more respect for them because I do think that Nebraska, if you look at their schedule, or even if they lose this game, say they lose this game, they could still go 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1. They could be 6-1 by the time they play Ohio State. If they win this game, they could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-0. I don't know why I had to count that. I could have just done the math, but they could be 7-0 by the time they play Ohio State, right? So this Nebraska team, I expect them to be really good. I think Colorado beating them would be a good barometer. Now, if Colorado loses this game, I think we're going to see what their flaws are for this team. And I'm not saying it'll determine their season because I don't think it will. It's a week 2 in non-conference game. And now that everybody's goal is the playoff. I have Colorado winning about 7 games this year, but everyone's goal is the playoff. So even if you lose a week 2 game against Nebraska, you are still in the mix for the playoff in your conference, right? So I won't say this game doesn't mean much, but it doesn't decide your season. But at the same time, it's going to be very telling. I think we're going to learn a lot from this game. So that's my prediction. I think Colorado wins in a close one. But if they lose, I think we're going to really know what their flaws are for this 2024 season, which there's still a long ways to go. So they better figure it out quick. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs and making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. On tomorrow's episode, you guys are going to love this one. Nebraska fans, you too, especially if you're listening. I'm going to be having Mitch Sherman on. He's the host of Locked On Nebraska, and he also covers Nebraska for The Athletic. I'm going to have him on. We're going to do a crossover. It's going to be great. So make sure to tune in, like, subscribe, follow. Appreciate all you guys and all the support that you guys give me. I will see you guys tomorrow.